Welcome to the Level Up Your Band podcast, episode 90. Hello and welcome back to the Level Up Your Band podcast. My name is Gavin Patterson and I'm here with Julian Pomble.
Hello.
How are you this week?
Not stressed about internet. No, I'm joking. We had this conversation beforehand. And funnily enough, we're both having internet woes.
Yeah. I don't know what it is. Like, when I got that new router, I was saying to you that I found the optimum place in the studio and it was getting like 60 mega, whatever the hell it is. And now it's getting like 10, 20, I don't know why. So
and the problem I'm having is that I've located I've put all my computer and all my stuff in like a really nice part of the room and it's all looking great, but it's in a Wi-Fi black spot. So
Yep.
Yeah, but this isn't level up your bandwidth. This is level up
level up your band. Level up your bandwidth. That was funny. That was well done. Because internet. You're lucky. You can get fiber optic.
I can get fiber optic. Yeah, but there's only one provider providing fiber optic in my area.
Right.
Which,
at least you have one.
At least I have one.
I don't even have the old-fashioned copper wire broadband.
Goodness sake.
I don't have broadband, full stop. In fact, there is actually a fiber optic cable at the top of my road leading to the factories. Mm-hmm. There is fiber optic. And I think I told you the engineer who they were digging up the fiber optic. Our neighbour they were digging it up in his land, and we were speaking to the engineer just out of curiosity. I was like, how much would it cost to get this fiber, like a T-junction, and then take the fiber optic from the main cable down to our house? And he's like, 100 grand? So if I want fiber optic broadband, it would cost me £100,000. And that was 10 years ago.
You could buy a house for that.
Yeah,
okay house.
A really house, maybe.
Well, it depends where it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, it still stands. It's a fiber optic or a house.
Fiber optic every day. No.
Gotta get those high speeds.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're not here to talk about internet struggles.
Sorry, yeah. So today we are talking about musician struggles.
Very solemn episode.
So that just popped into my head, just thinking about when I was younger and things that were a big issue at the time that really worried me and bothered me, and then suddenly just stopped being a problem, and how that came about. So these are all linked to like experiences. Just going through the mill. So we've got our top 5 biggest pains in the ass.
Yes, which funnily enough, your top 5 were also my top 5. So I came up with a slightly more nuanced top 5. So we can just cover as much ground as possible, which was good though, because it meant that I had to sort of stretch my thinking, and I was just like, oh yeah, that was something I had to deal with at one point, and it may not be the majority of people, but I'm sure there's a minority out there that would like to know. So
definitely. Cool. Do you want to go first, or will I go first?
Do you want to go? Sorry.
You just stabbed yourself with a cymbal stand.
Yeah, it's okay. At least it's not pointy.
Yeah. I'll sharpen it for next time.
Yes. You go first, and then I'll go. So you do one, and then I'll do one. And then you do 2, and I do 2.
Fair enough. Cool.
Because funnily enough, they're kind of almost correlated. Almost.
Yeah, a little bit.
It's quite freaky. But anyway.
Freaky deaky. Cool. So, number one, in no particular order, I don't think. The top 5 things we struggled with and overcame as musicians. Number 1, voicing my opinion with regards to musical ideas. So, I'm thinking back to a specific period of time when I started playing in bands and started going to rehearsal rooms. This is before I could even drive, I was like 16, 17.
Yeah.
Even 14, 15, 16, 17.
Yeah.
I would be in a situation where other people would be discussing like the song or the chords or the melody, and they would have their little laptops out. This is before iPads. They would bring their laptop along. That was really cool in those days with Guitar Pro in it. Oh, these guys have got money, Like, and they would show you a part of the song, like, oh, the drums go like this or whatever. Yeah. And they would be discussing arrangements and we'd be jamming, and they would say, interjecting with musical ideas, and why don't we try this passage and repeat that twice and go back to the top and blah, all this stuff. And I was very, very aware of the fact that I was just sitting there in silence and just going along with whatever they said, and was afraid to contribute anything. And I might not necessarily have had much to say as well. It wasn't like I had something to say and couldn't say it. It was more deep than that. It was more like I couldn't think of anything to say that would be of any worth. I just didn't have any ideas. And it's like, I feel like I'm kind of almost worthless because they're coming up with all these ideas and I'm coming up with nothing. So that must mean that I don't belong here, kind of thing.
Right.
So that was quite jarring early on. Because I'm like, oh, I'm so crap. Like, I don't belong in this room because these people are like, what about this? What about this? Let me try this. Let me play it like this. And I'd be like, nothing. Just nothing. So I overcame that, I think, just with age. I think it was an age thing.
Totally. Yeah, I think if you ever feel like that, it's just due to, because I've definitely felt like that. I think it's due to inexperience, but I think inexperiences are either going to make you feel, it's either going to put you in either one or the other side of the spectrum, where you're gonna.
I'm gonna move it. Okay.
Like one time,
there you go.
Shame on it, I guess. 2 times, I'm an idiot.
3 times it's a conspiracy.
3 times. Flat Earth. I don't know. Right. What was I saying? Yeah, it's kind of like the Dunning-Kruger, but it's not. If you know what I mean. Like, I think not knowing enough about something is either going to make you extremely overconfident, or you're going to clam up and not try and suggest things.
Well, I think in that situation, I'm thinking back to a time I was rehearsing in lo-fi studios, which no longer exist, I've been told. I think they're out of business. They used to. There's a little dingy little rehearsal studio just next to George Square in Glasgow that I used to frequent. I used to go there like once or twice a week at one point, every week with different bands. And that would be around 2008-9. And I would be 16, 17, getting the train. And at that point, I had learned enough to know that I didn't know anything. So I had passed the Dunning-Kruger phase of thinking that I'm invincible. Because I'd been playing in like school orchestras and stuff from the age of 14, 15.
Right.
So I already overcame that. I think I'm invincible. I think I know everything. To learning just enough to give me a little kick. Just like, oh, I don't know anything. So maybe that had something to do with it, where I didn't have enough confidence to voice my opinion because I just felt like I knew nothing. But I didn't know nothing. I knew something.
Yeah.
But maybe it was just a confidence thing.
Yeah.
But I did know stuff. I was at that point, I had been playing drums since I was 14 and playing music since I was 6. So I mean, I knew basic rhythms and like crotchets and semi-breves and or quarter notes and half notes if you're American. Like I'd been learning all that theory since I was 6 years old. So I knew high school level theory before I was 10. So I knew a lot more than my like classmates, I guess. But I still, that wasn't enough. I still didn't have the confidence yet. I think that came once I'd left school, more so. Yeah, I think there was just a maturing thing. Because there were kids I was playing with that were younger than me, that had more maturity than me, and were able to voice their opinions better. So it's maybe not a musical thing, more of just a maturity thing.
Yeah. So my number one is the total opposite of yours, which was just complete unadulterated arrogance. And this kind of came from when I was doing music. I don't think it's arrogant of me to say that I took to music quite naturally. And it's just something that I just can do. And I could do from a very young age. Brain is clearly wired that way. And then when I was doing music, I grew up in a very rural part of Scotland, and I was the best musician there.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, I'm the best musician there.
Okay.
I know it
Went
all.
to your head.
I know probably just as much, if not more, in some areas than some of the music teachers in my school, which is total nonsense.
Right,
now that I really think about it. And then that landed me in a lot of like, basically it made me look like a total fool, really. Especially when I moved and I went to an actual music school and then conservatoire, I was hit really hard by that, because I was like this sudden sort of feeling of like superiority. Just
big fish, wee pond.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not so big now.
No.
And that ended up sort of psychologically, it was kind of psychologically damaging, really, in quite in a few ways. In that, I think there's some people that people will react differently. So like somebody who's arrogant, who's then humbled, will just, that's that lesson learned. And then for some people, it might go in a total opposite direction, which will lead me on to the next point, and then I'll pass on to you, which is that because these are kind of tied in together. And then ended up sort of developing a really weird imposter syndrome that I just basically
polar opposites.
It took me from one end of the spectrum to like, I'm the best, to people hire me for things, but I shouldn't be here, and I don't belong.
Yeah.
I'm quite good at. I was quite good at masking it, but like there were points where like people kind of caught on, they were like a bit confused. It's like, why are you behaving like that? Like like you clearly do know what you're doing. Like that's really strange. That's bizarre. So just something to watch out for. If you're finding that you're getting a little bit too big for your boots, hopefully somebody will let you down gently and you'll be able to learn from it. I think the problem that I ended up encountering was that it was a very big shift, and then it just developed into something totally different.
Yeah. If you feel you're getting too big for your boots or whatever, you're getting too comfortable with what you're doing, go and join another band or dep for another band, just to remind you how crap you are.
Yeah.
I definitely need that. I've not played with another band for a long time. I really need to get into. I need to do that at some point. Just go and play some dep gigs more. I turn down a lot of dep work just because I'm so busy with my own stuff. But if I should take some more gigs just to remind myself and keep my my learning skills sharp.
Yeah.
Because I'm not learning that much new stuff these days. Whereas in the past, I think back like 5, 6, 7 years ago, I was learning so much music so quickly, so rapid. It was really keeping me sharp. Whereas now I don't have to learn anything virtually.
Yeah. No, it's with imposter syndrome. A good tactic that I used was I ended up just sort of, if a really bizarre thought came into my head regarding to it, like I've been asked to play bass for a band, right? And then suddenly I start thinking to myself, oh, why are they asking you? They must have run out of people to ask. You're the last choice, that kind of thing. You then have to, for me, it's just a matter of like looking at it totally logically. Like just sit down and just go, am I really the last person that they asked? There's hundreds of bass players in the country, with profiles, that are probably available, and in some aspects, some of them might be better than me. But the matter of the fact is that they've gotten in contact with me not because I'm the only option left, but because they want me to play for them, So
Right.
I think the best way to do, rather than sort of like bat them away, is bat away sort of intrusive thoughts, is just to sort of let them in, look at them for what they are, and then shoo them away afterwards. I think that's a good way of approaching any sort of weird mental health thing, or whatever you want to call it, or whatever it is. Weird impulses or addictions or things that you don't want to do. I'm not an addiction expert. I'm not a doctor. But like when I've dealt with things like that, I've just sat with, the need or the thought or whatever it is, and then just usher it away and then go. Because denying something and sort of like batting away, it's just delaying the problem. It's just going to come back and it's going to be worse.
Yeah. It's like sweeping it under the rug.
Yes.
And then before you know it, you've got a mountain-shaped rug.
It's just like, how did that get there?
Why is the couch like up like this? Cool. So my number 2 is social anxiety. So I largely think that's because I am naturally, believe it or not, I'm more now in my adulthood, in my ripe old age of 30. I am more like what I was like preschool now than I was. So I think that I am naturally more extroverted than introverted. And I think school sucked it out of me.
Society. We live in a society, Gavin.
No, we're not doing that meme. So I think with age and confidence, my extroversion has come back a little bit. So when I was a kid, I was very, very chatty. Like I was out of control. Like I would go to like Tesco's and just talk to everybody. Hello, how are you? What's your name? Blah 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 blah. Talk. Very sociable kid. You wouldn't think that, but as soon as I hit school, because I was a little bit of an outsider, So I didn't live in the same place as all the people round about me. I was a little bit of a foreigner. I had a weird accent because my mum's not from Scotland. I had a strange sort of hybrid accent. I was from a farm. I didn't hang out with these people. I didn't go to their Sunday schools. I didn't go to Boys Brigade. I didn't hang out. I didn't have friend circles. Every day I would jump in a taxi and get ferried away off into the countryside, and I wouldn't see them till the next day. And they would all socialize and hang out after school, and they developed rapport and stories and cliques, and I wasn't part of that. And I think that affected my personality traits. So in all the way through school, I think my natural way of being was suppressed by my environment. But it wasn't until all that gets leveled out again and everyone becomes anonymous in the adult world. When you leave school and you go out into the world, everyone becomes more autonomized. Everyone becomes more individual. You're less of a class of children.
Yeah. You're not a collective anymore.
Yeah. So I think because of that, and just maturity in general, I think my natural tendency has come back. So I'm like 60-40 in favor of extroversion. Maybe like upper 60s, 69, 68, according to the Big Five test. I'm more extroverted than I thought I was.
I'm kind of in the middle. I think my extroversion, my introversion are kind of
50-50 almost.
50-50.
Right.
Yeah. Which is funny because I used to be, I wasn't a very extroverted kid. I was more introverted. I became very introverted during primary school. And
again, probably because of the foreign thing as well.
Yeah.
It's you're not from here kind of thing.
Yeah, the outsider, you know.
Yep.
And on top of that, I was doing even more outlandish things that were just not considered the norm, such as playing a playing a girl's instrument. Do you know the flute is a girl's instrument?
All right.
I know, how ridiculous is that? But
okay,
it was just because it was one of those things. Like if that was an interesting thing to sort of figure it out. You know, playing the flute and playing. I mean, it depends where you grow up, I guess. You know, in some parts of Scotland, playing the flute is a very manly instrument.
Very.
Extremely.
Yeah.
No, it's not. Yeah. Anyway.
Extremely. Unless you play tin whistle, and then you're a piper or whatever, and those guys eat glass. They're the most crazy. As if anyone knows any pipers, they're wild, really wild.
Yeah, but little things like that. I just totally that, and I was sort of encouraged to practice a lot and not be social. So I ended up becoming very
antisocial.
And now I feel like I've hit a good balance. I like being with people. I like talking to people. I like going to places. But I'm also very happy just being on my own, and I think I've hit a nice balance.
Yeah. So, when I left school with the social anxiety thing, it was extremely hard to go into a new band or project. Yeah. Incredible, like nervousness, like
honestly,
going to a new band.
Honestly, I think I got over my social anxiety probably about just before lockdown. I think I was just very good at masking it.
Right.
You know, which I think a lot of people are, you know, very good at sort of like pretending to be outgoing, but then you put them in a situation where they have to be social, and it's like, you know, certainly for me, but this is another conversation I was having. I was using alcohol a lot to be very, to talk to people and like,
That's
you know,
courage.
be more, I'm now at the point where I've decided to totally cut out alcohol. at least for a year, and then go from there, kind of thing. Because it was just becoming a thing that I was using to just talk to people. And then while I was drinking, I was just like, what am I doing? I'm trying to get these ideas out, but I can't because I'm drunk. This is really frustrating.
Yeah.
You know, I sound like a total idiot.
Right.
I'm not going to drink anymore.
Yeah, I've never done that. Never done that. I don't know why
Being
not.
straight edge since I've known you.
Yeah, I've always been straight edge. I don't know. I've never bothered with that. I think it's due to the outsiderness of where I live.
Yeah.
I'm allergic to collectivism. I'm completely allergic to it in the sense that at school I had an extremely, extremely huge reaction, and still do to this day, whenever I see a large group of people doing one thing. There's this inbuilt mechanism inside me that's like, must do the opposite.
Yeah, okay.
I'm like that all the time about everything. If I see lots and lots of people doing one thing altogether, I'm like, why are you doing that? That's stupid. Why are you doing that? Bunch of sheep. That's just this inbuilt tendency. I don't know. I think it comes from primary school, basically. Primary school, high school, of because I was the outsider.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be part of your group. I think it's that. I think it's a little bit of it's probably resentment. But it's different. It's what it's actually done. There's positives and negatives, because obviously there are positives in being part of a group, but there's also in social situations and things like that. But there are a lot of negatives.
Yeah.
So the positive thing about me being like that is that I have gotten confidence from that. So I can attend social situations and I'm confident in myself as an individual, because I don't really adhere to any particular group or way of thinking. I'm just kind of myself, and I'm more confident in myself. So in social situations, like within bands and going to different band practices and different bands all across the country and meeting new musicians all the time, I don't really get anxious anymore because I'm confident in myself as an individual. I don't care to fit into the group anymore. If I do or don't, I don't really care, because I've gotten this far without doing it and it's worked out okay, and I don't really care anymore. It's quite liberating to be free thinking and a free individual person without having to think about what would people in my group say if they, what is the opinion of my group, rather than what is my own opinion. So I'm allergic to that kind of everyone else is doing it, so I must do it too. It's that whole experiment. You see these YouTube videos with an elevator of people, like a lift, and everyone's facing in one direction, and someone comes in and then they do the same, and then halfway through the elevator going up the floors, everyone turns, and then you're left going, why is everyone turning? And then you just turn because you have to copy everyone else. It's that kind of must fit in kind of mentality, which I don't have because I didn't fit in for so long. Maybe it's something to do with that. So yeah, that's how I overcame social anxiety, is just become more confident in myself as an individual. And it comes with age. So yeah, you can go and do your number 3 now. If you did your number 2, right?
I did my number 2. You go do number 3.
Oh, okay.
I'll do number 3.
Does that play in better? All right. My number 3 is confidence in playing ability. So again, that was a big deal. Not thinking that I am up to the task. Not thinking that I'm any good, because when you're in education and you're starting in bands and you're young, if you have a bad teacher, which sometimes I had bad teachers. I had a lot of good teachers as well, but bad teachers only focus on what needs to be improved. They don't reward you for stuff you've done well. So you always think that you're doing it wrong. So no, that's not right. Do it like this. Okay, let's do another piece. Oh, you're doing this wrong. And you always think, oh, I always must be wrong. So, but there's no one there anymore to tell me that I'm wrong. So I just think I'm wrong all the time. So I have no confidence in what I'm playing. So if I, for the first time, I'm playing a piece of music and there isn't a teacher watching me, I'm now in a band outside of school, and I get handed this sheet music, and I'm reading. I'm like, no one's here to check if I'm doing this right. Oh my God. I remember the first time that ever happened after leaving school. I'm like, I'm handed this piece of music. There's no one to go to say, is this right? Like, I'm the only person here that, I'm policing myself, and I had no confidence in getting it right. Because I think, well, usually I've got someone hovering over my shoulder saying, oh, you've played that crotchet value is too long or too short, or you need to do that bar again because it's blah, 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 blah. But it's just practice and getting asked back as well. That's a big thing, because you probably can get kicked out of a school orchestra, but it's really difficult. You've got to be really sucky to be able to do that. But the teachers would always rather just encourage the students and try and help them. But if you're in a band that pays, you'll get kicked out if you're bad. So, especially like orchestras or stuff like that. Thinking back, obviously, people listening to the podcast probably aren't in orchestras, but if you're in a band and you're not pulling your weight, and you're not playing very well, and you're not confident in your ability because you think you're bad, if you are bad, hopefully your band members would tell you that you're doing it wrong.
Yeah, if not, get better band members, get better friends.
Yeah.
It is funny though. I think people tend to get chucked out of bands and things like that, not because of playing ability. It always tends to be like a personality issue, But you have to be really, really awful, and to get chucked out of a band.
Yep.
But yeah, like sometimes if you've self-imposed this lack of confidence on yourself that you can't play, or I'm not as good as this person or that person, your playing is gonna suffer. And I noticed that. I noticed that at university. I used to play in gigs at uni, and I used to, while I was doing it, I used to constantly think to myself, man, I suck. I'm really bad. This solo's terrible. Everything about this is terrible. Everyone's looking at me thinking this is terrible. And then I would listen to a recording and go, that was okay, actually.
Yeah.
That's me playing.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound like me playing.
Yeah.
It's...
Yep.
It's
all in your head a lot of the time.
It always is.
It could be in your head.
And it's always worse when it comes out and manifests itself in reality. When it's been like, it's one thing it being in your head, but then you're thinking, oh, I'm playing terribly and this and that and the next thing, and then all of a sudden you are terrible. It's not a matter of you just thinking you're terrible. Yeah, you can
sabotage yourself, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, totally. That way of thinking can actually make it come true.
Yeah, yeah. So just be careful.
Aye.
My number 3 was kind of similar to your number 1, which was being afraid of being wrong, which is a problem when you come from a place where you're suddenly really good at what it is that you're doing, and then all of a sudden you're not good. Then you start questioning every single bit of knowledge that you know, and then you don't want to voice your opinions because you're like, what if people think I'm an idiot? Right. It's just a maturity thing. I like if I'm going to be wrong about something, I want to know and I want to learn about it. You know, so being proven wrong, I think is something that you should look forward in a weird way. Something you should look forward to. You know, oh, you should look forward to this negative thing, but like being proven wrong is sometimes a good thing. Like in a band, you know, somebody suggests you know, oh, we should have this chord progression, and you're thinking to yourself, no, we shouldn't. That's never going to work. You know, just or say it's the other way around. You're playing and you're like, you know, I think if we changed it to this chord progression, it would sound better, but it is a bit unorthodox. It's a bit weird. I don't know if it'll work. Just try it anyway, because people aren't going to think you're a fool. I think people are, you know, if people do treat you like that, you should probably find another band, honestly. I've suggested so many idiotic things that haven't worked out in Eriska. So many things. And it's fine. What's the worst that can happen? It's funny.
Yeah.
You know?
That's the worst that can happen. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. That's really the worst that can happen, you know, in my scenario anyway. It's not like you know, oh, you gave an idea that was bad. Gulag for you. You're like, that's silly. That's very silly. That's not how it works. So just, I guess it's just again, it's a maturity thing. But like, just experiment with things and
there's another side to that as well. Like there's an arrogance to it, where people say lots of wrong things that they think are right. So they even in the face of being proven wrong, they'll double down on being wrong rather than accept that they're wrong and correct themselves. They'll just double down, even when it's the case is won. Like, you're wrong, but you'll just double down on it anyway.
Yeah, there's a subreddit for that.
Oh,
it's called Confidently Incorrect.
Oh yeah, I follow that.
Yeah, it's good fun.
I know a few folk that are like that. It's usually guitarists. So they're confidently wrong about stuff, and then they'll create a big scene in the rehearsal, create a big thing, and it'll be half an hour fighting. And then they'll be in a huff for the rest of the rehearsal, and then they'll go away, and they'll come back the next day, and they'll be like, I'm really sorry, guys. You guys were right. You guys were right. So you basically just, you know, ruined an entire rehearsal when you could have just went, okay. So you've got to be big enough to go, I am wrong, instead of going, no, I'm right. And then later coming back and going, oh, I'm sorry. Maybe you're right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So this is just another angle. Number four. Yeah, overcoming the get a real job thing. So that's the music isn't a real job. Being a musician isn't a real job. Go and get a real job.
There's no such thing as a real job.
That was tough. Overcoming that just from like family and friends. When you're leaving school or whatever, and you're like, oh, what are you doing when you leave school? Oh, I'm going to college or uni to do music. All right, cool. All right. Well, what's the plan with that then? Oh, don't know. See what happens. Well, that's not much of a plan, is it? So you're not going to make money doing music. It's just a waste of time, waste of money. And then you study your music degree or whatever. You get your degree, and then you've got no work or whatever. And it's like, well. Yeah. What did you expect? What do you expect?
Totally. And when I was studying, that was just rampant among all the students. They were all sitting there going, "Oh, aren't we wasting time? Isn't that funny?" And it's like, are we? Are we actually wasting time? You know, like, is that really a helpful way to think about things? It's like, oh, look at us getting our useless, liberal arts degrees, ha 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 ha.
Yeah.
And now really thinking about it, it's such a dumb thing to say, and it's a dumb way to think. It's just dumb. You know, I don't know what it is about society pressuring you into getting a real job, because a real job now, it wouldn't have been a real job 100 years ago or 500 years ago. You know,
it's only a real job because someone smart figured out a way to market it. So they found a way to take the skills and make it marketable. At one point, manufacturing cars would have been a stupid idea, a stupid job. It's like there's an old advertisement saying, like, it was like a climate thing at the time. It was like in the 1800s about London, saying the increase in the purchasing of horse and carriages London is going to be filled with horse manure. This is going to be a big problem for the London environment. Not foreseeing that cars would be a thing and there would be no horse manure at all. So it was kind of like, why are you wasting your time with that combustion engine and those wheels? What a waste of time. You're not making any money. That's a useless job. But then someone was smart enough to figure out how to make money from it and then offer it to society. And it's the same with anything you study.
Yeah, totally. It is the same. And I think, you know, ironically, sitting there thinking like, oh, look at us, you know, getting this useless degree. It really doesn't help, you know, because if you're really thinking like that and you're saying those things, I don't know, maybe actually go and get, you know, become an accountant, or like, you know, study accounting or study law or study anything else. Like at that point, why are you doing, I don't know, like, why are you doing music? Sorry, that really touched a deep nerve that had not been touched for a very long time. It's just something I've been thinking about a lot.
What do you mean?
Just the whole like get a real job thing, because the kind of atmosphere that I was in, it was like this weird hipster, like post-ironic, like, oh yes, we are wasting our time doing this degree, ha 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 ha.
Yeah.
Take that, society. And it's just like, well, what if we don't treat it like that and we, you know, study music, composition, or whatever it is, and let's try and like make some progress in it. Let's work together.
Every degree is useless until you do something with it. A medical degree is completely useless
unless you become a doctor.
Unless you become a doctor, yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what you're studying. If you're too lazy or stupid to figure out how to monetize yourself and make it marketable so that people want to buy your skills or products, then technically, in the sense of get a real job, yes, that is useless. Now, obviously, that's bundled up in the get a real job concept. The get a real job is coming from someone who thinks this is of no benefit to society. Why are you doing this? That's where that's being framed from.
Yeah.
Now, if you go to study a liberal arts degree for your own pleasure, then that's fine. Yeah. That is valuable to you. It does not need to be valuable to others. If you are well off and you want to study a liberal arts degree and you don't need to monetize it and make it, you know, make a contribution to society with the skills that you have learned. If you don't need to do that, then that's fine. But that's not what that question is being framed from the position of you should be going to university to study something that is easier to market to get money, to offer something up to society. They're like, this is coming from like parents and things like, oh, you would be better off doing something that is going to give you skills that is more marketable so that people can buy the thing that you provide. But if you're doing a liberal arts degree and that's your attitude is, oh, my useless liberal arts degree, that just means that you have paid absolutely no thought to how you are going to take these skills and offer them up.
Honestly, I'm going to be honest here. I didn't really think about it. because I wasn't really given much of an option when I was at school. It was just like, oh, this is what you're going to do. And I was just like, is it?
Yeah, okay.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
What about this? No, you're too stupid for that. But that's another story for another time. Yeah.
Right. It doesn't get taught in school, unfortunately. This is bizarre to me. Like, the arts and the humanities and the sciences are all little bubble groups, and they never intermingle.
They never. No.
And that is completely wrong. Like, they're all bundled up together. You know why? Because we're all human beings. You know what I mean? Like, that's the common thing. Like, you can be a scientist and also like music. And music can inspire. Sci-fi inspires science, real science. You know, science fiction, which comes from the imaginations of human beings, gets into the minds of people, and they start asking questions, and they think, wonder if there's anything, you know, to this and whatever. How many times have we seen sci-fi and then it ends up being, you know, science? Like rockets landing themselves in Star Wars, and then you've got Elon Musk with these rockets. It can inspire people. Like, the arts comes first, right? It's the abstract, artistic, human thing, and then it trickles down and into other domains. You know, it's as important. You know, it's innovation. Art is innovation. It's a form of innovation.
Yeah.
And innovation leads to prosperity in, like, engineering and science, and trickles down into other departments
and
as well.
It kind of becomes a circle, because then, like, advances in science then leads to more advancements in the creative arts and technology, you know, and technology, and then it all.
It's a positive sum game. It's like it's all feeding each other and positive growth overall.
Yeah. If it wasn't for scientists, we wouldn't have MIDI keyboards. But if it wasn't for scientists that, you know, computer scientists that were also into music.
Yeah.
You know? Like,
exactly, it takes the two things. And to say, like, oh, my useless liberal arts degree, that should be really hard to say those words. You should really have a horrible taste in your mouth after saying that, because it just means that you haven't given a single thought to how am I going to take these skills and make them useful to myself and others. Like, what interests me the most in this liberal arts degree, and what can I offer that's slightly unique and slightly different from what other people are offering, so that someone can get value from the skills that I've learned, whether it's sound engineering or just your ability as a musician, or maybe you're an expert on, like, medieval English folk music, or you can be an ancient
music historian, or
a musical instrument restorer, or there's so much you can do and offer, and it just shows a lack of imagination when you say things like that. I don't know.
I agree. My number 4, it kind of ties into it a little bit. It's a little bit more nuanced though. Doing what I want to do instead of what I should do. So my degree is in, what I studied was jazz music, how to play jazz bass. And the thing is that I never really wanted to be a jazz musician, right? And I wish I'd gone into that course thinking to myself, this knowledge is going to be useful.
Right, okay.
Right? And I will be able to apply this in any way that I want, right? So when I graduated from that course, I was like, well, I guess I need to try and make a living as a jazz bass player. I hated playing jazz music. Actually, I like listening to it. But like I don't know, maybe it's one of these things that as I grow and I mature, I won't hate it as much. But there's a deep visceral reaction that I have when I listen to bebop. It triggers like a bunch of like different like anxiety alarms and things like that, and like my entire brain's just like, danger. There's danger here. And I guess that's something I still need to deal with. But I would have had a much I've now gotten to a place where I know what I like. I like playing I don't even know how to describe it. I just like playing music. I like improvising. I just don't necessarily like playing things that are exclusively in a jazz styling, whatever the heck that means. Like and
using it doesn't mean, just because you've pigeonholed yourself into one avenue does not mean that will cross-pollinate into something else.
Exactly. The thing is that I guess this is what I'm trying to say basically, is don't pigeonhole yourself, if you're studying something. Just because your guitar teacher is like really into the blues and he teaches you how to play like Stevie Ray Vaughan or something. But you're not really that into blues music.
Yeah.
You don't mind it, but you prefer other stuff.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah.
You don't pigeonhole yourself. Just because I've learnt this style, I need to play like this. It was kind of like a real life example with a band, actually. Our band. We were in danger of pigeonholing ourselves by going, we need to play trad tunes. Scottish music. We need to play Scottish music. And then... people don't really care for that. And then we started writing our own stuff. And then people went, oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So even in a band setting, just because you play things a certain way, don't pigeonhole yourselves to like, well, I guess we kind of sound punky, so I guess we'll just do stuff like in a DIY punk scene or whatever, and we'll just do everything the same, and we'll style ourselves the exact same way. And or like if you're in a death metal band, we need to make sure we have a logo that you look at it and you can't even read it. If you want to be like a death metal band, but aesthetically you don't want to look like, then do it. Set yourselves apart.
Yeah. Like a death metal band with Hello Kitty
guitars, or whatever, or like a more cutesy kind of styling, or it's death metal, but all the lyrics are very positive and life affirming, whatever. Do your, basically. What I'm saying is, and this is kind of tied to the get a real job, don't be afraid to experiment, because people that get noticed are the ones that experiment. I
was about to use an example. Probably the greatest rock and roll drummer of all time, John Bonham, the drummer from Led Zeppelin, is a jazz trained drummer, and he learned jazz, very proficient, and then took that skill and took it into something totally different. Rock metal drumming, and used his jazz skills. And he was extremely proficient, and other drummers couldn't touch him because they were all just learning rock to play rock, or learning metal to play metal. But he learned jazz to play metal, and gave rise to an entire different type of music because he took skills from one domain and used it in another.
Yeah,
it does not. If he was to just be a good boy and get a real job, he would have been a jazz drummer, and we would never have had heavy metal.
Another good example is one of my favorites, actually, Jack Bruce, who bassist and singer of Cream.
Oh yeah,
who went to at the time it was the Royal Scottish Academy of Music and Drama, and got threatened with expulsion because he was playing in jazz clubs.
Oh no!
I know. So they were like, you either do your composition and cello degree, or you leave. And then, but what he ended up doing was he took things that he learned from classical training. He took things that he learned from playing jazz music, and he combined the two together. His voice, his singing voice, is so powerful because he actually used his diaphragm properly.
Yeah, proper.
You know, like how you're supposed to do.
Don't be a snob. Just, you can learn from other schools of thought. It does not mean that you're going to be a classical singer. It does not mean that if you study in this particular way, that's what you're going to do. You can use different methods to make a new thing.
Yeah, exactly. And that's how innovation occurs.
Yep.
You know?
Cool. So, number 5, last one. Becoming financially stable. That was a big thing. Because I decided back in 2010, I decided to do music as my give it a shot. So I gave myself 5 years, 5-year plan, my 5-year plan to become financially reliant on just purely music. And boy, was that a struggle. So I had to figure out, I forced myself, gave myself a sort of deadline to figure out how I could turn my worthless HND music into something that was worth something. But it wasn't the HND that's the thing. This is the problem with modern education, is the certificate at the end is the be all and end all, but it's actually not, and it shouldn't be. It should be the skills and experiences that you learn along the way. That's the most important part of the journey, not the destination. So in doing that course, I learned more of what not to do than what to do at that course. So it was a really good experience in learning what not to do and how not to behave, thanks to my lecturers, who were largely just nightmare human beings, and a good example on how not to behave with students and with just general other musicians. So that was good. And also getting exposed to a recording studio, which just my brain lit up like a Christmas tree. I was like, oh, I like this a lot. I like all the buttons and all the things and all the toys. And I thought, I wonder if I could do that. And I was like, I really like orchestras. I like how orchestras work. I like sitting watching a conductor pick different sections of the orchestra and ask them to play things differently to achieve an overall sound. So can I have the flutes play a little bit more sustained? Can I have the clarinets play a little bit more staccato? And this fascinated me, that he could pick out one individual thing and go, more of this, less this, play it like this, watch your rhythm, blah, 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 blah. And overall had a picture in his head of what the overall sound would be like. What's that? That's being a mixing engineer.
Yeah.
And I love that. I had been exposed to that for years at that point, playing in orchestras, and I thought, that's really cool, but I don't want to do that. I'm fascinated by the process, but I don't want to be a conductor, and I don't want to be a composer. And sound engineering was a way that I could take that interest and fascination and do it electronically. The EQ on the guitar needs to be turned up. That bass part doesn't match up with what he's playing on the kick drum. And this got my brain sparking, and I figured out a way how to take my innate tendencies and skills and make them worth something to someone. And then I became financially stable, along with playing my drums as well for gigs and stuff, for money. And it was a struggle, because it was like a 5-year. Is this going to work? Is this going to work? Is this going to work? It could fail. It could fail. It could fail. And it failed lots. I failed a lot for a long time. And then one day, all the pieces of the puzzle just came together and was like, okay, it's working. But I stuck it out, and I was really hard on myself, and got there. But at the time, oh boy, stress, lots of stress, miserable, 2014 was probably the worst year of my life. Absolutely rotten. That was like the final year, because it was like from 2009-10, 5 years. If I don't have this down in 5 years, I'm giving up music. That was what I said. And 2014 was my final year, and that was tough. Got to 2015-16, and it was just brilliant. It started to come into place. But there's a lot of anxiety with this type of thing, because trying to figure out how to make this work financially is really hard. Really hard.
For sure.
Yeah, I don't know how it was for you.
For me, I'm gonna be honest. For me, it's like the last year and a half has been really tough, and it's
lockdowns and stuff.
Yeah, the lockdown, because it was just frustrating, because things were like doing a thing, you know, projects that were doing things, as I'm sure that's how you felt as well.
Oh my God,
then all of a sudden,
nothing.
You know, because it was, so I'm still kind of struggling. Struggling with that, because there's extra factors that get involved as you get older. Things like I really want to start a family at some point. I don't want to leave it really late.
Exactly, yeah.
You know,
it's a good motivator, that.
It's a great motivator. But then it's also, you also need to be, quite, what's the word that I'm looking for? You need to be quite pragmatic.
Yeah. What's working?
You know, and what's working, what's not, and you know, and you need to be very realistic, and it can be a very tough. I'm not in this position yet at all. I'm sure there are people that have been. They've just had to make a very tough call and just go,
yep,
I just can't.
I
need to you know, I don't, at the end of the day, something that I've sort of settled on is that I can't see myself not being involved in music in some way. So that's a good thing to sort of keep me going forward. You know, it's sometimes you just need to look at it from lots of different angles until you then eventually figure it out. You know, so
yeah.
My number 5, we did an episode on this way back, which is more detailed. But for me, and this was to do with past experiences, just depression and mental health problems. Which overcoming it doesn't mean that it's gone. You know, people can overcome depression and still be depressed. You know, like it's like when somebody is an alcoholic, they don't get cured from alcoholism. They're still going to be an alcoholic the rest of their lives, and you just need to accept that. You know, it's why like people who have stopped drinking, some of them never drink again. They just stop. You know, it's like you can't get cured from like smoking addiction, you know, or like nicotine addiction or anything like that. It's just like you just stop doing it, and you have that thing, and it's just it's a part of you, you know. So like I would say that I am not depressed right now, and I have not been depressed for a long time. I would still say though that I have depression because I have a tendency to become depressed very easily if I don't do the things that I do to prevent from being depressed. So way I overcame that was just see somebody.
Yeah, I'll do it.
Yeah. You know, there's people that are trained to deal with that kind of thing, and they'll find a the right way for you to do it. And there's lots of little personal things you can do yourself, and it'll depend from person to person. Some people exercise is a thing, and it makes them feel better. I hate exercising, but it's something that I need to do, so I try and do it.
It's one of those things where you hate it before you start it, and then once you're doing it and have done it, it feels amazing. But you just trying to get the motivation to do it is the part that you hate. But it's trying to do that thing where guitar teachers do. What they do is or drummers or good teachers finish on something you're good at, so that you have a memory of, I remember the last time I practiced, I was playing that thing that I enjoyed, and that gives me positive feelings for when I go back to practice. So it's trying to remember, last time I exercised, it made me feel really good for the rest of the day. I need to remember that and not think of this slog running up a hill or cycling and getting
or
sore.
Doing push-ups or whatever it is.
Yeah. This is pain and torture. But it makes me feel so good. So it's like trying to remember that it's fun and good, and it's good for you overall.
Yeah, totally.
Upkeep.
But yeah, that's I feel like we did an episode on it, like musicians and mental health,
like a year ago or something.
Yeah, I can't remember what number it is, but it's
far back.
It's pretty far back. I think it was when I had really hard. I was still struggling with really terrible internet.
Yes,
those were the days. But you can go check that episode out and listen to it or watch it or whatever you want to do. So there's a lot of good information in there. But I think that was the biggest thing. It's just admitting, just accepting that it's a thing. And that's fine. And it's the same with really any of the problems. Social anxiety. Okay, I am socially anxious. It's good that I know that. Admitting to it isn't giving it any more power or making it more of a thing. It's just admitting it. You can go forward from there rather than sort of like pretending it's not a thing, or like it's again like sweeping it under the rug, and then you end up with a big mountain, and it's just dumb. Anyway,
cool. So that's our 5 things. I just put some things down at the bottom here in general, just some things to think about in general. Hone your craft. So if you're not confident in your playing or whatever, make sure you've actually spent some time and getting good on your instrument. Like they talk about your 10,000 hours to become a master. So they say, like, if you spend 10,000 hours doing a thing, then you can be considered a master of your craft. I don't know if that's true, but they talk about the 10,000 hours. So hone your craft. Don't be afraid of failure. You should embrace it. So you should embrace failure. You should fail fast. I always talk about failing fast. Get faster at failing so that you can pick yourself up and start winning faster.
Yeah.
The sooner you know that you're failing, and the faster that you fail, then the faster you will get feedback, and the faster you will learn from it, and the faster you'll get better. It's really important. Elon Musk talks about that a lot. If you ever watch interviews with him, the biggest lesson he would take away from his life is the acceptance of failure. He talks about that a lot. It's like if he didn't have that, he wouldn't be who he is. He wouldn't have Tesla. He wouldn't have SpaceX, because he was willing to fail, and he would rather fail really fast so that he could keep moving on. I mean, his entire career is filled with failure. He had to, like a good example is Steve Jobs. He had to destroy one of his products deliberately to make the iPhone. He had to make the iPod redundant he had to destroy his own market on iPods in order to make the iPhone a thing. If he was proud and an idiot and was afraid of failure, he wouldn't have made the iPhone, because he would have just kept manufacturing iPods until someone else made the smartphone and undercut him. Then he would be out of job. But he was willing to go, I'm willing to throw my own thing under the bus and fail so that I can succeed at something else. And that takes a true, like, amazing person to do that. So another one is act like you belong. If you think you're not the right person for the job, despite them asking for you specifically and constantly asking for you to play in your band or whatever, then the problem is probably in your head. If people keep asking for you, they keep complimenting you, they keep wanting to book you, they want you to record with them, they constantly say how good your playing is, but in your head you're always like, oh, I don't belong here, then you're wrong. It's not everyone else is wrong, it's probably you that are wrong, so you need to change your thinking. Listen more than speak. That's just a general thing.
Yeah.
2 ears, one mouth thing, you know. It's obviously bollocks, but it's a nice little story. You have 2 ears and one mouth for a reason, because it's more important to listen than to speak. That's obviously biological bollocks, but it's a nice little analogy. So just in general, be more observant than...
Especially if you're wanting to learn.
Yeah. And work hard. Be the one that people know as the reliable one. The one that's always there, the one that's reliable, the one you can count on by just working hard.
You could be the best player like in the world, but if you're not reliable and you're not a good person to work with, you won't get bookings.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So that's kind of everything I had on that. If you have anything else.
No.
That was a good meaty, chunky episode.
Yes.
Cool. So that was Struggles That Musicians Face, episode 90. So hopefully going to get in a guest in the next 10 episodes. Going to see about that. Just trying to get some dates arranged. If we don't do it, we don't do it. But I'll try to get a guest in before our 100th episodes. But yeah, as always, if you are enjoying this podcast, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts and share it far and wide on your socials, or just in private messages. Send it to your musician pals. That would be cool as well. And follow us on Spotify so that you get notified when a new episode comes out. And yeah, got a couple of ideas for next week, so we'll see what happens. But yeah, hope this was helpful, and catch you next time.
Bye.
Bye.